We are in the Firth Hall of the University of Sheffield. The university now has nearly 9,000 full-time students taking diploma and degree courses in the arts, sciences, medicine, engineering and law. And hoping to graduate to the semi-finals of Mastermind by winning outright tonight are our four contenders, and they are a freelance writer from Cambridge, a civil servant from Harrogate, a postgraduate student from Newcastle, and a local government accountant from Carlisle. And their chosen specialist subjects cover musical theatre, Christopher Isherwood, 20th century astronomy, and David Lloyd George. So may I have the first contender, please? Your name, please.
James Moore.
Occupation?
I'm a freelance writer.
And your chosen specialized subject?
The British American musical theatre between 1915 and 1935.
Mr. Moore, you have 2 minutes on the British American musical theatre between those dates, starting now. Which Noel Coward musical opened in London in July 1929 and contained the memorable song, I'll See You Again?
Wake Up and Dream.
No, Bittersweet. The pianist Billy Mayle wrote the music for Nippy, which opened in 1930. To what does the title refer?
Pass.
Who wrote the music for the 1916 Broadway show See America First?
Cole Porter.
Correct. Into which 1918 musical did Al Jolson later incorporate the songs My Mammy and Swanee, which came to be so identified with him?
Wonderbar.
No, Sinbad. In December 1930, which C.B. Cochrane show featured Jessie Matthews singing Dancing on the Ceiling?
Evergreen.
Correct. Which musical written for the Astairs was the first complete score the Gershwin brothers wrote together for Broadway?
Pass.
Which classical composer collaborated with A.P. Herbert on Tantivy Towers, produced at the Lyric Hammersmith in 1931?
Vivian Ellis.
No, Dunhill. What famous waltz song was first heard on Broadway in Harry Tierney's 1919 musical Irene?
Alice Blue Gown.
Correct. In which Broadway show did Helen Kane first sing her famous Boop Boop a Doop song, I Wanna Be Loved by You?
Ziegfeld Follies.
No, Good Boy. In which 1921 musical did the baritone Thorpe Bates bring the house down with the ballad The Fisherman of England?
Pass.
In which 1929 musical, with music by Vivian Ellis, did Binny Hale sing the popular song Spread a Little Happiness?
Mr. Sindhu.
Correct. What was the Monckton and Talbot musical in 1917 that was based on Arthur Pinero's farce The Magistrate?
The Arcadians.
No, The Boy. Which figure in the world of music was celebrated in G.H. Klutzum's musical The Damask Rose?
Pass.
In 1918, in which Rudolph Frimmel musical did Mae West play a vamp called Mame?
The Firefly.
No, Sometime. In which Broadway musical in 1923 did W.C. Fields appear as Professor Eustace McGargle, a medicine man at a fair?
Poppy.
Correct. In which show did Jerome Kern's song Bill reappear after being dropped from the 1918 musical Oh Lady Lady?
Showboat.
Showboat is right. And at the end of that round, Mr. Moore, you have scored 6 points. You passed on 4 the pianist Billy Mayle, who wrote the music for Nippy, which opened in 1930. With the title Nippy, he referred to the waitresses at Lyons corner houses. The musical written for the Astairs, which was the first complete score the Gershwin brothers wrote together for Broadway, was Lady Be Good. The 1921 musical, in which the baritone Thorpe Bates brought the house down with the ballad The Fisherman of England, was The Rebel Maid. And the figure in the world of music who was celebrated in G.H. Klutzum's musical The Damask Rose was Chopin. Mr. Moore, thank you very much. And our second contender, please. Your name, please.
Andrew Pantin.
Occupation.
Civil servant.
And your chosen specialized subject.
The life and works of Christopher Isherwood.
Mr. Pantin, you have 2 minutes on the life and works of Christopher Isherwood, starting now. Which English poet first urged Isherwood to join him in Berlin in 1929?
Auden.
Correct. Who was the leader of a string quartet for whom Isherwood acted as secretary when he left Cambridge?
Mangio.
Correct. What was the real name of the Repton School history master portrayed as Mr. Holmes in Lines and Shadows?
Gorse.
No, G.B. Smith. In A Single Man, which English novelist is the subject of a quirky lecture by George at St. Thomas State College?
McNeice.
No, Huxley. Which novel did Isherwood describe as a loosely constructed fictional autobiography, something in the manner of Goodbye to Berlin?
The Lost.
No, Down There on a Visit. Who wrote the dramatized version of the novella Sally Bowles entitled I Am a Camera?
John Van Druten.
Correct. What was the book that Auden and Isherwood completed just before emigrating to America in January 1939?
Condor and the Cows.
No, Journey to a War. For Mr. Norris Changes Trains, which Berlin Institute provided Isherwood with the detail he required to write about the masochistic Mr. Norris?
Institute of... pass.
Which Beatrix Potter character did Isherwood claim his Berlin landlady, Fraulein Turo, strongly resembled?
A rabbit.
No, Mrs. Tiggywinkle. What was the film company that Isherwood satirized in Prater Violet as Imperial Bulldog?
MGM.
No, Government British. Which of his novels did Isherwood describe in a letter as terribly slipshod and vulgar and sentimental in a Hollywoodish way?
Mr. Norris.
No, The World in the Evening. To whom did Isherwood dedicate the biography of Ramakrishna and his disciples published in 1965?
Swami Brahmanandra.
Correct. Which unusual London theatre company produced the 3 plays written by Isherwood and Auden?
Pass.
Who was the Austrian film director whom Isherwood called Friedrich Bergmann in his novel Prater Violet?
Viatal.
Correct. Which economist, whose wife played the leading lady, sponsored Isherwood and Auden's final play On the Frontier?
Lawrence.
No, John Maynard Keynes. What career had Isherwood freshly embarked upon when he began to write the novel The Memorial? And you may answer.
He was a medical student.
He was exactly becoming a doctor. At the end of that round, Mr. Pantin, you have scored 6 points. You pass on to, for Mr. Norris Changes Trains, the Berlin Institute, which provided Isherwood with the detail he required to write about the masochistic Mr. Norris, was the Magnus Hirschfeld Sexology Institute. And the unusual London theatre company that produced the 3 plays written by Isherwood and Auden was called Group Theatre. Mr. Panton, thank you very much. And our third contestant, please. Your name, please.
Brian Docherty,
Occupation.
postgraduate student,
And your chosen specialised subject.
history of 20th century astronomy.
Mr. Docherty, you have 2 minutes on the history of 20th century astronomy, starting now. Which theory of the origin of the universe was supported by the discoveries of Penzias and Wilson in 1965?
Big Bang,
Correct. What did Clyde Tombaugh discover at the Lowell Observatory in Arizona in 1930?
Pluto,
Correct. Which Cambridge radio astronomer was awarded the 1974 Nobel Prize for Physics for the discovery of the first pulsar in 1967?
Anthony Hewish,
Correct. What was the first X-ray satellite launched by the European Space Agency in 1983?
Exosat,
Correct. In which month of the year does the meteor shower known as the Perseids reach its maximum?
August,
Correct. What are Ishtar Terra and Aphrodite Terra mapped by the Pioneer probes in 1978?
places on Venus.
Correct. In 1931, which engineer, using a radio aerial nickname merry-go-round, discovered that the Milky Way was a source of radio waves?
Jansky,
Correct. What is the name given to the Y-shaped radio telescope completed in 1981 near Socorro in New Mexico?
pass.
What is a conjectural region which seems to be the source from which comets fall inwards towards the sun?
Oort cloud,
Correct. The key property of quasars is that they have an enormous red shift. Who in 1963 discovered this fact about quasars?
ARP,
No, Schmidt. To what property of the stars does the Harvard sequence of spectral classes that reads OBAFG refer?
sorry, can you repeat the question?
Stop the watch. To what property of the stars does the Harvard sequence of spectral classes that reads OBAFG refer? Start the watch.
Well, it's basically the temperature or the
Correct.
spectral.
What is the name of the quantity which relates the distance of a galaxy to its speed of recession?
Hubble's constant.
Correct. Which space probe approached closest to Halley's Comet?
Vega,
No, Giotto. Which Siberian region was devastated on the 30th of June 1908 when a comet or large meteorite collided with the Earth?
Tunguska,
Correct. What did Project Ozma at the Green Bank Radio Astronomy Observatory aim to do?
search for intelligent life in the
Correct.
universe.
Which astronomer is commemorated in the name given to the largest mass possible for a stable white dwarf star?
Chandrasekhar,
Chandrasekhar is right. At the end of that round, Mr. Docherty, you have scored 13 points. You'll pass on just the one. The name given to the Y-shaped radio telescope completed in 1981 near Socorro in New Mexico is Very Large Array, or VLA. Mr. Doherty, thank you very much. And our fourth contender, please. Your name, please.
David Steele,
Occupation.
local government accountant.
And your chosen specialised subject.
The life and career of David Lloyd George.
Mr. Steele, you have 2 minutes on the life and career of David Lloyd George, starting now. In which Welsh town did Lloyd George become an article solicitor's clerk?
Portmaddock.
Correct. In what disguise did Lloyd George escape from Birmingham Town Hall in a riot in 1901?
As a policeman.
Correct. Which local Tory landowner was narrowly defeated by Lloyd George in the Carnarvon Boroughs by-election of April 1890?
Ellis Nanny.
Correct. In 1911, under what circumstances did Lloyd George make the acquaintance of his future second wife, Frances Stevenson?
She was asked to act as a tutor to Meghan.
Correct.
George.
In 1912, which newspaper proprietor had a house built for Lloyd George at Walton Heath?
Riddle.
Correct. What post was given to Lloyd George when Asquith formed his coalition government in 1915?
Ministry of Munitions.
Correct. What nickname was given to Lloyd George's personal secretariat, which worked in improvised huts at 10 Downing Street?
A garden suburb.
Correct. In 1921, where in Surrey did Lloyd George purchase the estate which became his chief home in England?
Churt.
Correct. Which future Prime Minister did Lloyd George appoint as Director General of National Service in 1916?
Chamberlain.
Correct. In July 1922, which Duke led the attack on Lloyd George's honours system in the House of Lords?
Pass.
In which official capacity did Lloyd George participate in the investiture of the Prince of Wales in 1911?
Constable of Carnarvon Castle.
Correct. With which country was there an imminent risk of war in the last week of the Lloyd George government?
Turkey.
Correct. In February 1930, which Welsh MP accused Lloyd George of hypocrisy in opposing Labour's coal mines bill?
Bevan.
Correct. What name did Lloyd George give to the multi-party movement for a British New Deal established in 1935?
The Council for Action.
I need more than that.
Organising Prosperity.
No, Council of Action for Peace and Reconstruction. In 1909, where did Lloyd George deliver the speech of which Edward VII complained that it set class against class?
Newcastle.
No, Limehouse in East London. In 1945, when Lloyd George became a peer, from which Welsh river did he take the name of his earldom?
Dwyfor.
Correct. In which city did Lloyd George first define the post-war task as making Britain a fit country for heroes to live in?
Wolverhampton.
Correct. And at the end of that round, Mr. Steele, you have scored 14 points. You pass on just the one. In July 1922, the Duke who led the attack on Lloyd George's honours system in the House of Lords was the Duke of Northumberland. Mr. Steele, thank you very much. That brings us to the end of the first round, the specialised questions round. Let us glance at the scores. And in joint third place on 6 points are James Moore and Andrew Pantin. In second place on 13 points is Brian Doherty, but in the lead at this halfway stage by 1 point on 14 is David Steele. And on now to the second round, the general knowledge round. And as always, I'll be calling up the contenders in the ascending order of their first round scores, which means that they'll be in exactly the same order as in the first round. So first of all, please may I have James Moore. He's an American from Hollywood, living in Cambridge for the last 3.5 years. He is a freelance writer, took British American musical theatre between 1915 and 1935 to score 6 points. Now, your general knowledge question starting... Now, what's a more common name for the ground nut or earth nut?
Pass.
In boating, what is a painter?
It's a sail.
No, it's a rope. In which month in 1941 did the United States enter the Second World War?
December.
Correct. What name is given to the method of producing three-dimensional images that normally uses lasers?
Hologram.
Correct. At the Diet of Worms in 1521, who reputedly said, "Here I stand, I can do no other"?
Martin Luther.
Correct. Under the rules of golf, what is the maximum number of clubs a player may use during a round?
13.
No, it's 14 now. The Caliph Harun al-Rashid, mentioned in the Arabian Night stories, ruled from which city?
Tehran.
No, Baghdad. A cockatrice or basilisk is a fabulous beast reputed to be capable of killing by what means?
Hugging.
No, by its venomous breath or its glance. What is the meaning of the word persiflage?
Hiding by lots of words.
I'll accept it. It's raillery, frivolous banter. In the 16th century, who overthrew the Aztec Empire and won Mexico for Spain?
Cortez.
Correct. Of which African country is Kinshasa the capital?
Pass.
Which American novelist, author of Main Street and Elmer Gantry, won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1930?